Rain slammed against the windows of the San Francisco penthouse. Each drop a tiny fist pounding to be let in. Eli Carter stood frozen, the lawyer's letter trembling in his hands. Its words searing into his soul, $20 million. His grandparents, the only ones who ever truly saw him, had left him everything in now. His own family was clawing it back. Not for greed, but for hate. Eli's breath hitched as he sank onto the leather couch, the city skyline blurring through the storm. At 25, he'd built a life on courage, coming out as gay in a family that worshipped tradition over truth. His parents, siblings, and cousins had turned their backs, their silence louder than any words. But his grandparents, Agnes and Theodore Carter, had been his refuge. Their sprawling Napa Valley estate was where he'd spent summers learning to paint, laugh, and love himself, flaws and all. Now, they were gone, their deaths 6 months apart, and their will had ignited a war. The letter from the family's attorney was brutal. His parents claimed Eli had manipulated his grandparents, that his lifestyle disqualified him from inheriting. They'd filed a lawsuit to contest the will, dragging his identity into a legal battlefield. Eli's phone buzzed another venomous text from his cousin Mara. "You don't deserve a cent. You shamed us all." He tossed the phone aside, his chest tight with a familiar ache. He wasn't just fighting for money. He was fighting for the right to be himself. Eli's best friend, Lucas, burst through the door, shaking off his soaked jacket. "Eli, you okay? I saw the news your family's dragging this to court already." Lucas's brown eyes, warm and fierce, searched Eli's face. They'd met in college, bonded over late-night talks about dreams and fears. And Lucas had been there when Eli's family first disowned him. Now, he was a constant, a tether to hope. "I don't know how to fight this," Eli admitted, his voice cracking. "They're saying I brainwash Gran and Pops, that I'm unnatural." The word stung, a blade sharpened by years of whispered slurs at family gatherings. Lucas knelt beside him, gripping his hand. "You're not alone in this. We'll fight back together." The next morning, Eli met with his lawyer, Rachel Nguyen, in her sleek downtown office. Rachel was a force, her sharp suit and sharper mind cutting through the chaos. "They're claiming undue influence," she explained, sliding a stack of documents across her desk. "Your grandparents' will is airtight, specific, notarized, and backed by a video they recorded stating their intentions. But your family's playing dirty. They've hired a PR firm to smear you publicly." Eli's stomach churned. "Smear me? For what? Being gay?" Rachel nodded grimly. "They're framing it as you exploiting your grandparents' kindness. The media is already eating it up. Rich heir's scandalous inheritance. We need to counter this. Eli, show the world who you are." That night, Eli stood in his art studio, a converted loft filled with half-finished canvases. Painting had always been his escape, a way to pour out the colors of his soul. He dipped his brush into crimson, slashing it across a canvas, the red bleeding like his anger. His grandparents had loved his art, hanging his messy childhood sketches in their dining room like they were masterpieces. Now, their love was being twisted into a weapon against him. Lucas appeared, holding 2 coffees. "You're spiraling," he said softly, setting the cups down. "Talk to me." Eli's brush stilled. "I keep thinking, what if they're right? What if I don't deserve this? Lucas stepped closer, his voice steady. Your grandparents chose you because they saw your heart. Don't let your family's lies make you doubt that. The first court hearing loomed, a specter over Eli's days. He spent hours with Rachel, digging through old letters and photos to prove his bond with his grandparents. One letter, written in Agnes's elegant cursive, broke him. Eli, you are our joy. Never let anyone dim your light. He clutched it, tears falling, as Lucas sat beside him, a quiet pillar of strength. The media frenzy grew, tabloids splashing Eli's face across headlines, gay heir and bitter family feud. Strangers on the street stared, some with pity, others with scorn. But there were glimmers of support letters from LGBTQ plus advocacy groups, messages from old classmates, even a mural in the Castro district with Eli's face and the words "Love wins." Each kindness felt like a lifeline, pulling him from the edge. On the eve of the hearing, Eli stood on his balcony, the city glittering below. Lucas joined him, their shoulders brushing. You're stronger than you know, Lucas said, his voice low, carrying a warmth that made Eli's heart stutter. For a moment, the world felt still, the storm inside him quieting. He didn't know it yet, but that moment would anchor him through the battles ahead. The courtroom was a cold, sterile arena, its polished wood and stiff chairs a stark contrast to the chaos in Eli's heart. He sat beside Rachel, his suit feeling like armor too heavy to bear. Across the aisle, his parents, Margaret and Robert Carter, sat stone-faced, their eyes avoiding his. His sister, Claire, and cousin Mara flanked them, their whispers sharp as knives. Eli's fingers tightened around the letter from Agnes, tucked in his pocket like a talisman. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, called the session to order. Rachel stood, her voice steady as she presented the will. Agnes and Theodore Carter explicitly named Elijah Carter as their sole heir, with a recorded statement affirming their decision. She played the video on a courtroom screen, a grainy image of his grandparents, smiling, their voices warm. Eli is our legacy, Agnes said, her eyes bright. We trust him to carry our love forward. Eli's throat tightened, the memory of her hug flooding back. His family's lawyer, a slick man named Gregory Voss, countered with venom. Eli manipulated vulnerable elderly people, exploiting their affection to secure an inheritance he's unfit to manage. Voss painted a picture of Eli as a schemer, using his deviant lifestyle to curry favor. The words landed like blows, but Eli kept his head high, Lucas's hand brushing his under the table. Outside, the media swarmed, cameras flashing as Eli emerged. A reporter shouted, Eli, is it true you seduced your grandparents for their money? Rachel pushed him forward, whispering, keep walking. But the question burned, a reminder of the world's cruelty. Lucas, ever present, squeezed his shoulder. They're vultures. You're better than this. Back at the penthouse, Eli collapsed, the weight of the day crushing him. Lucas made tea, the kind Eli's grandmother used to brew chamomile with a hint of lavender. You held your own today, Lucas said, sitting close. I'm proud of you. Eli managed a weak smile, but doubt gnawed at him. What if I lose everything? The money, the memories, their trust in me. Lucas's eyes softened. You won't lose their love. No one can take that. The next weeks were a blur of depositions and headlines. Eli's family dug deeper, unearthing old emails where he'd vented about their homophobia. Voss twisted them in court, claiming Eli's resentment proved his intent to manipulate. Rachel fought back, presenting witnesses, neighbors, friends, even the gardener at the Napa estate who testified to Eli's genuine bond with his grandparents. He was their sunshine, the gardener said, voice thick with emotion. Eli found solace in his studio, painting through sleepless nights. One canvas, a swirl of blues and golds, depicted his grandparents' vineyard under a starry sky. Lucas watched him work, his presence a quiet comfort. "You're turning pain into something beautiful," he said one night, his voice catching. Eli paused, paintbrush trembling. "I'm trying to hold on to them." Lucas stepped closer, their faces inches apart. And for a heartbeat, Eli thought he might close the gap. But Lucas pulled back, clearing his throat. "You will. Through this." The lawsuit's toll grew. Eli's bank account dwindled, legal fees eating away at his savings. He sold a few paintings, each sale a pang of loss. Supporters rallied. A local gallery hosted a show of his work, donating proceeds to his defense. The LGBTQ+ community organized a fundraiser, their chants of "Eli's fight is our fight" echoing through the Mission District. Strangers sent letters, sharing their own stories of rejection and resilience. One, from a trans teenager. "Read, you're showing me I can survive my family too." Eli kept it on his desk, a reminder of why he fought. But his family escalated. Mara leaked a doctored photo of Eli at a pride parade, edited to make him look reckless. The tabloids ran with it, and Eli's phone lit up with hate messages. He stopped going out, the world feeling too sharp. Lucas noticed, dragging him to a quiet diner one night. "You can't hide," he said, sliding a milkshake across the table. "You're not just fighting for you, you're fighting for everyone who's been told they don't belong." As the second hearing approached, Rachel uncovered a lead. A former accountant for the Carter estate hinted at financial mismanagement by Eli's parents. "If we can prove they're after the money for themselves," Rachel said, "we can turn this around." Eli nodded, hope flickering. But that night, alone, he stared at a photo of his grandparents, their smiles frozen in time. "I'm trying," he whispered, "but I don't know if I'm enough." The San Francisco fog clung to the streets, a gray veil that mirrored Eli's mood as he prepared for the second hearing. Rachel's discovery about his parents' financial misdeeds had lit a spark of hope, but the weight of the fight pressed harder. He hadn't slept properly in weeks, haunted by dreams of his grandparents' disappointed faces. Lucas stayed over most nights, his presence a steady anchor, though Eli sensed something unspoken growing between them, something neither dared name. In court, Rachel was relentless, presenting evidence of Robert and Margaret Carter's shady dealings. Bank records showed they'd siphoned funds from the family trust years ago, long before Eli's grandparents died. "This lawsuit isn't about Eli's character," Rachel argued. "It's about greed." The judge's expression remained unreadable, but Eli saw his mother's face tighten, a crack in her composed facade. Voss, unfazed, doubled down. He called a surprise witness, Eli's uncle, Thomas, a pastor who'd always preached family values. Thomas's voice boomed through the courtroom, laced with righteous indignation. "Eli's choices go against our faith. His grandparents were swayed by his charm, not sound judgment. Eli's hands clenched. The accusation, a betrayal of the summers he'd spent debating theology with his grandfather, who'd taught him love was the truest gospel. Rachel cross-examined Thomas, exposing inconsistencies in his story. Didn't Theodore Carter donate to LGBTQ plus charities in Eli's name? She pressed. Thomas stammered, and Eli felt a fleeting victory. But outside, the media spun Thomas's words into headlines. Pastor condemns gay heir's inheritance grab. Eli's heart sank as he scrolled through X, where trolls amplified the hate. Lucas, scrolling beside him, slammed his phone down. This is garbage. You're not what they say? Eli wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in. He retreated to his studio, painting a storm-dark grays and violent purples, a reflection of his turmoil. Lucas followed, watching silently as Eli worked. You're carrying too much alone, Lucas said finally, his voice soft but firm. Let me in. Eli's brush paused, his eyes meeting Lucas's. For a moment, the air felt charged, but Eli turned back to the canvas, afraid of what crossing that line might mean. The community's support grew stronger. A local drag queen, Miss Violet, organized a rally outside the courthouse, her megaphone blasting, Eli Carter is our family. Hundreds gathered, their signs a rainbow of defiance. Eli watched from Rachel's office, tears pricking his eyes. They don't even know me, he whispered. Rachel smiled. They know your fight. That's enough. But the pressure mounted. Eli's parents filed a motion to freeze his accounts, claiming he was squandering the estate. Rachel fought it, but the legal fees were crushing. Eli sold another painting, this one of his grandparents' vineyard at sunrise. The colors so vivid it hurt to let it go. The buyer, an anonymous donor, sent a note. Your art is your power. Keep fighting. Eli framed it beside the trans teenager's letter, their words a shield against despair. One night, Lucas cooked dinner-burnt pasta, but Eli laughed for the first time in weeks. They sat on the floor, music playing softly, and Lucas's hand lingered on Eli's as he passed the wine. You're going to win this, Lucas said, his voice low, intense. Eli's heart raced, the unspoken tension between them sparking. He wanted to lean in, to let go, but fear held him back. What if love made him vulnerable when he needed to be strong? Rachel's next move was bold. She subpoenaed Mara, Eli's cousin, who'd been vocal in the media. Mara's deposition was a disaster for the Carters. Under pressure, she admitted to exaggerating claims about Eli to protect the family name. Rachel pounced, her questions exposing Mara's jealousy of Eli's bond with their grandparents. The courtroom buzzed, and Eli felt a surge of hope. But Voss wasn't done. He hinted at a damning piece of evidence to come, leaving Eli sleepless. That night, Eli found an old sketchbook from his teenage years, filled with drawings of the Napa estate. One sketch showed him and his grandparents laughing under an oak tree. He traced the lines, memory flooding back. I won't let you down, he whispered. Lucas, asleep on the couch, stirred, his presence a quiet promise. As the fog thickened outside, Eli felt a shift. Wasn't just fighting for money. He was fighting for his truth. For every kid like him who'd been told they weren't enough. The courthouse steps were a gauntlet of cameras and shouts. But Eli walked through, head high, Lucas at his side. Inside, the third hearing crackled with tension. Vasa's damning evidence was revealed, a forged letter, supposedly from Agnes, claiming she regretted naming Eli as heir. The handwriting was close, but Eli knew it wasn't her. She'd spent hours studying her cursive as a kid. Rachel's team proved the forgery in hours, tracing it to a disgruntled former estate manager with ties to Eli's parents. The judge's frown deepened, and Eli's hopes surged. But the victory was bittersweet. His parents' desperation showed how far they'd go, and the betrayal cut deeper than ever. Back at the penthouse, Eli stared at the forged letter. It lies a mockery of his grandparents' love. Lucas sat beside him, silent but close. "They're running scared," he said finally. "You're winning." Eli shook his head. "It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like losing them all over again." Rachel pushed forward, calling witnesses to dismantle the Carter's narrative. A hospice nurse who'd cared for Theodore testified to his pride in Eli, recalling how he'd shown her Eli's paintings. He said Eli was his legacy, she said, her voice breaking. The courtroom stilled, and Eli's eyes burned with tears. Lucas squeezed his hand under the table, a silent vow to stay. The media tide began to turn. A viral ex-post from a queer activist group shared Eli's story, racking up thousands of shares. "This isn't just about money," the post read. "It's about a family punishing love." Support poured in donations, letters, even a song written by a local band called Eli's Light. But the hate persisted, too. Eli's inbox filled with slurs, and a brick shattered his studio window one night. A note tied to it, "Freak." Lucas insisted he stay at his place, and Eli agreed, too shaken to argue. At Lucas's small apartment, the world felt softer. They cooked together, laughed over old college stories, and for a moment, Eli forgot the war outside. One night, as they watched a movie, Lucas's arm draped over Eli's shoulders. Casual but electric. Eli's heart pounded, but he didn't pull away. "You make this bearable," he murmured. Lucas's eyes met his, soft and searching. "I'd do anything for you," he said, and the words hung heavy, unspoken promises swirling in the air. The legal battle intensified. Rachel uncovered more evidence. Eli's parents had pressured his grandparents to change their will years ago, but they'd refused. A recorded phone call surfaced. Margaret's voice cold. "He's an embarrassment. We'll fix this." The judge admitted it as evidence, and the Carters' case began to crumble. Eli's relief was tempered by grief hoped. Deep down, his parents might soften, but their hatred seemed carved in stone. Eli poured his pain into a new painting, a massive canvas of a lone figure standing against a storm, rainbow light breaking through. Lucas watched, awed. "This is you," he said, voice thick, unbreakable. Eli's throat tightened, and he set the brush down, turning to Lucas. Their eyes locked, and this time, neither looked away. Lucas's hand cupped Eli's face, tentative, and Eli leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that felt like coming home. It was brief, fragile, but it lit something new in Eli's chest. Hope, not just for the fight, but for a future. The community's support grew louder. A queer youth center invited Eli to speak, and though terrified, he agreed. Standing before a crowd of teens, he shared his story, voice shaking but strong. "Your truth is your strength," he said, echoing his grandparents' words. A girl in the front row sobbed, and Eli knelt to hug her, feeling his purpose solidify. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. As the fourth hearing loomed, Rachel warned that Voss might try a final gambit. "They're cornered," she said. "Expect anything." Eli nodded, gripping Lucas's hand. The kiss had changed things. A quiet shift neither had fully addressed. But it gave Eli courage. He painted late into the night, each stroke a defiance of his family's hate. Outside, the city hummed, its pulse syncing with his own. He was ready not just to win, but to live. The kiss lingered in Eli's mind, a spark that warmed him through the chill of the fourth hearing. Lucas sat beside him in court, their fingers brushing, a silent anchor. Rachel's warning proved true. Voss unleashed a new attack, claiming Eli had a history of instability based on therapy records from his teens, when he'd struggled with his family's rejection. The invasion of privacy felt like a gut punch. But Rachel was prepared, arguing the records were irrelevant and illegally obtained. The judge agreed, striking them from evidence. But the damage was done. Eli's pain was now public. Outside, protesters hired by his family, Eli suspected, held signs calling him a disgrace. Lucas shielded him from the cameras, his jaw tight with anger. "They're desperate," he said as they drove away. "They know they're losing." Eli stared out the window, San Francisco's hills blurring past. "They're not just fighting for money anymore. They want to erase me." Back at Lucas's apartment, Eli broke down, the weight of his exposed vulnerability crushing him. Lucas held him, arms strong and steady. "You're not what they say," he whispered. "You're everything your grandparents loved." Eli clung to him, their closeness a lifeline. They didn't kiss again, but the air between them hummed with possibility, a promise for when the storm passed. Rachel's next move was a masterstroke. She called a financial expert who detailed the Carters' mismanagement of the family trust, showing they'd planned to sell the Napa estate for profit before Eli's grandparents intervened. The evidence painted his parents as opportunists, not protectors of legacy. The courtroom buzzed, and Eli saw his father's face pale. For the first time, victory felt within reach. The community's support swelled. A viral video of Eli's speech at the youth center spread across X, with hashtags like Stand With Eli trending. Artists in the Castro painted murals of his grandparents, their faces radiant with pride. Eli visited one, tracing the lines of Agnes's smile, tears falling. Lucas stood beside him, quiet but present. "They'd be so proud of you," he said, and Eli nodded, feeling their love in his bones. But the fight wasn't over. Voss hinted at a final witness, someone close to Eli who'd testify against him. Eli racked his brain. Who could it be? An old friend? A disgruntled ex? The uncertainty gnawed at him, and he painted through it, creating a canvas of a figure rising from ashes, rainbow flames curling around them. Lucas watched, his eyes soft. "That's you," he said, echoing his words from before. Eli smiled, the weight lifting slightly. One night, Lucas took Eli to a quiet beach outside the city, the waves crashing under a starlit sky. They walked barefoot, the sand cool beneath their feet. "When this is over," Lucas said, "what do you want?" Eli paused, the question catching him off guard. "To live," he said finally. To paint. To love. To be free. Lucas's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. You will, he said, and Eli believed him. The fifth hearing approached, and Rachel prepared Eli for the mystery witness. Whoever it is, we'll handle it, she said. Eli nodded, but fear lingered. He spent the night at his studio, finishing the rainbow flame painting. Lucas stayed, sketching beside him, their silence comfortable but charged. As dawn broke, Eli looked at Lucas, his heart full. Whatever happens, he said, I'm glad you're here. Lucas's smile was a promise, and Eli felt ready to face the storm. The hearing began with a shock. The witness was Claire, Eli's sister. She took the stand, her eyes avoiding his, and Eli's heart sank. What could she say to hurt him now? Rachel squeezed his arm, a reminder to stay strong. As Claire began to speak, the courtroom held its breath, and Eli braced for the worst, Lucas's hand steady in his. Claire's voice trembled as she took the stand, her eyes darting everywhere but at Eli. The courtroom was silent, the air thick with anticipation. Eli's heart pounded, Lucas's hand a grounding force beside him. Claire, who'd once braided his hair as kids, who'd turned cold when he came out, was now the wild card that could unravel everything. I was wrong, Claire began, her voice barely audible. I believed what our parents said, that Eli was a disgrace, that he'd tricked Gran and Pops. The word stung, but her next one stunned. But I found letters. Mom and Dad hid them letters from Gran, begging them to accept Eli. They refused. She produced a stack of envelopes, her hands shaking. I can't keep lying for them. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Rachel seized the moment, submitting the letters as evidence. Agnes's words, read aloud, were a balm to Eli's soul. Eli is our heart. You're breaking him, and it breaks us. Margaret's face crumpled, and Robert stared at the floor. The judge ordered a recess, and Eli sat frozen, torn between shock and gratitude. Lucas leaned close, whispering, She's on your side. Outside, Claire approached, her eyes red. I'm sorry, she said, voice breaking. I was scared, but I see it. Know you're the best of us. Eli hugged her, tears falling, a piece of his fractured family mending. Lucas watched, smiling softly, and Eli felt the weight of years begin to lift. The letters shifted the case. Rachel used them to dismantle Voss's narrative, proving Agnes and Theodore's unwavering love for Eli. The media caught wind, and headlines flipped. Sister's betrayal turns to redemption in heir's fight. Support flooded in donations, letters. Even a pride flag hung outside City Hall with Eli's name. But Voss wasn't finished, hinting at a final appeal if they lost. Eli's studio became his sanctuary again. He painted Claire, her face half in shadow, half in light, a symbol of her change. Lucas helped, mixing colors, their hands brushing. The unspoken tension between them grew, but Eli held back, afraid of losing the one constant in his storm. Lucas sensed it, saying one night, I'm not going anywhere, Eli, no matter what. The words felt like a vow, and Eli's heart ached with possibility. The community rallied harder. A queer bookstore hosted a reading of Eli's old letters to his grandparents, their love story resonating with hundreds. Eli attended, nervous but moved, as strangers thanked him for his courage. A young man, barely out, grabbed his hand. "You're why I told my parents," he said. Eli hugged him, feeling his grandparents' legacy in every connection. But the fight drained him. Legal fees mounted, and Eli sold another painting. This one of Lucas's silhouette against the ocean, a secret ode to their unspoken bond. The buyer, a collector, wrote, "Your work is a revolution." Eli framed the note, its words fueling him. Lucas, seeing it, grinned. "You're a revolution," he said, and Eli's cheeks warmed, the line between friendship and something more blurring. As the final hearing neared, Rachel prepared for Voss's appeal threat. "We're close," she said, "but they'll fight dirty." Eli nodded, steeling himself. That night, he and Lucas walked the Castro, rainbow flags glowing under streetlights. Lucas stopped, turning to Eli. "Whatever happens, you're enough," he said, his voice raw. Eli's breath caught, and he kissed Lucas. Brief but fierce, the world falling away. They pulled back, smiling, a new chapter beginning. The sixth hearing loomed, and Eli felt a strange calm. Claire's testimony, the letters, the community's love, it all anchored him. He painted one last canvas before the hearing, a vibrant explosion of color, his grandparents' faces woven into the sky. Lucas hung it in the studio, his eyes shining. "This is your truth," he said. Eli nodded, ready to face the end, whatever it brought. The final hearing dawned with a rare, clear sky. San Francisco's fog burned away by a determined sun. Eli walked into the courtroom, Lucas and Claire at his sides. A makeshift family forged through fire. Rachel's confidence was palpable. She built an ironclad case, bolstered by Claire's testimony and the damning letters. But Eli's nerves hummed, Voss's threat of an appeal a shadow over the light. Voss's final play was weak, a rehash of old claims now discredited by evidence. Rachel dismantled it, her closing argument a masterpiece. "This case isn't about money, it's about a family's refusal to love their son for who he is." Agnes and Theodore Carter chose Eli because they saw his heart. "Let there will stand." The judge nodded, her expression softening, and Eli dared to hope. The verdict came swiftly, the will was upheld. Eli was the rightful heir. The courtroom buzzed, and Lucas pulled Eli into a hug, his laughter warm against Eli's ear. Claire joined, her arms tentative but sincere. Outside, the crowd, friends, supporters, strangers cheered, rainbow flags waving. Eli's parents left silently, their faces unreadable. And though it stung, Eli felt free. The media frenzy softened, stories now celebrating Eli's triumph. "Gay heir wins against family's hate," read one headline. And Eli smiled, clipping it for his studio. But the victory was bittersweet. His parents' rejection lingered, a wound that might never heal. Claire stayed in touch, their bond fragile but growing, a bridge to a possible future. Eli threw himself into his art, painting a series inspired by the fight, vibrant canvases of love, loss, and resilience. A gallery offered a solo show, and the community turned out in droves, their support a living testament to his grandparents' legacy. Lucas helped hang the paintings, his pride evident. "You're unstoppable," he said, And Eli kissed him, no longer afraid. Their love a quiet rebellion against the world's cruelty. The money, now his, felt secondary. Eli set up a foundation in his grandparents' name, funding LGBTQ plus youth programs and art scholarships. He donated the Napa estate to a queer community center, its vineyards a haven for those needing refuge. At the opening, he spoke, voice steady. This is for every kid told they're not enough. You are. The crowd roared, and Lucas squeezed his hand, tears in his eyes. One night, Eli and Lucas sat on the penthouse balcony, the city sparkling below. What now? Lucas asked, his voice soft. Eli smiled, leaning into him. We live. We love. We keep fighting. Their lips met, a promise sealed under the stars. The future was uncertain, but Eli knew he'd face it with Lucas, with his grandparents' love, with the strength he'd found in himself. The final days before the gallery show were a whirlwind. Eli painted late, Lucas at his side, their laughter filling the studio. The community's support never waned. Letters, donations, and messages poured in, each one a reminder of why he'd fought. A young artist sent a drawing of Eli as a superhero, cape rainbow-hued, and Eli hung it beside his grandparents' photo, a new legacy forming. As the show opened, Eli stood before his paintings, Lucas's arm around him. The crowd's applause was deafening, but it was Lucas's whisper, "I love you," that grounded him. Eli's heart swelled, the words a gift he'd never expected. He was no longer just the heir, the outcast, the fighter. He was Eli, loved, whole, and ready for whatever came next. The gallery show was a triumph, Eli's paintings glowing under the lights, each one a chapter of his journey. Strangers and friends mingled, their voices a hum of awe and support. Eli moved through the crowd, shaking hands, hugging kids from the youth center, their smiles mirroring his own. Lucas stayed close, his presence a steady warmth. Their love now open, unspoken no more. The Napa Estate's transformation into a community center became Eli's focus. He visited often, helping plant gardens where he'd once run as a child. The kids who came queer, trans, searching for home reminded him of himself at 16. Scared but defiant. He taught them to paint, their laughter echoing through the vineyards. And each brushstroke felt like a promise kept to his grandparents. Claire visited too, her presence awkward but earnest. They talked over coffee, rebuilding what years of silence had broken. "I wish I'd stood up sooner," she said once, eyes downcast. Eli took her hand. "You're here now?" It wasn't forgiveness. Not fully. But it was a start. His parents remained distant, their silence a choice Eli learned to let go. He couldn't change them, but he could choose his family. Lucas, Claire, the community that had carried him. The foundation grew, funding shelters, scholarships, and pride events across the Bay Area. Eli spoke at rallies, his voice stronger each time, sharing his story to crowds that cheered and cried. One night, a teenager approached, clutching a sketchbook. "You made me believe I could be an artist," they said. Eli hugged them, his grandparents' words echoing, "Never let anyone dim your light." Lucas and Eli's relationship deepened, built on quiet moments, cooking disasters, late-night talks, walks through the city. They moved in together, the penthouse now a home filled with art and love. One evening, as they painted side by side, Lucas proposed, his voice shy but sure. "Marry me, Eli." The ring was simple, a band etched with a tiny rainbow. Eli said yes, tears falling. Their kiss a seal on a future they'd fought for. The lawsuit faded into memory, its scars softened by time. Eli's paintings sold worldwide, each one a beacon for those still fighting. He and Lucas traveled, visiting queer communities, sharing their story. In New York, a mural of Eli's face joined others, a symbol of resilience. In London, a gallery showed his work beside queer artists from across the globe. Everywhere, he carried his grandparents' love, a legacy stronger than money. Years later, Eli stood in the Napa vineyard, now a thriving center. Kids ran through the fields, their laughter a song. Lucas stood beside him, their hands clasped, rings glinting in the sun. A new painting hung in the center's hall, a gift from Eli, his grandparents. Smiling, surrounded by rainbow light, with Eli and Lucas small but strong in the foreground. The plaque read, "For Agnes and Theodore, who taught us love wins." As the sun set, Eli felt peace. The fight had been brutal, the hate relentless, but he'd emerged whole. He'd lost a family but gained a world one where he could love, create, and lift others up. Lucas squeezed his hand, and Eli smiled, knowing this was the life his grandparents had dreamed for him. Not just an inheritance, but a legacy of courage, love, and truth.